Welcome to the Rest Factor podcast. I'm Ana Marie Schick, certified health coach and resident sleep expert with Sleep Me.
I'm excited, I am honored to introduce the head strength and conditioning coach for Florida State University, Josh Storms.
It's gotta be genuine to who you are, right? Genuine to what you are, what are your values?
Hard work does not guarantee success. It doesn't, and it never will. It absolutely will put you in the best position to be able to achieve it. In a season that will be remembered.
On today's podcast, we have Josh Storms, the director of strength and conditioning at Florida State football. We get to talk about how he got into strength training to begin with and what he does with his student athletes and to set them up for success, and facts about Josh Storms as a professional, as an individual, and even as a parent. Stay tuned to hear more. Enjoy the Rest Factor podcast. All right, everybody, welcome to the Rest Factor podcast. I'm your host, Ana Marie Schick, certified health coach and resident sleep expert at Sleep Me. On today's podcast, we have Josh Storms. Josh is the director of strength and conditioning for Florida State football. Josh is actually the single reason we've partnered with FSU for several years now through sleep studies, helping getting their football players quality sleep. And now, most recently, Chilipad was named the official bed cooling partners of FSU athletics. Josh, we met you at a Summer Strong event, a Sorinex Summer Strong event about 4 years ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
and,
4 or 5.
But fun fact, I just discovered this as I was looking over your bio. You started your career as a seasonal assistant strength coach with the Minnesota Vikings. I had no idea.
I did, way back in 2000.
Awesome.
Long time ago.
All right. So, Josh, tell us about a normal day in the life of Josh Storms, from waking up to lights out.
Okay. It kind of depends on the day, but like right now, this time of year we're in the winter program. Approaching spring ball coming up here in a couple weeks. So right now we're kind of in week 7 of the winter program. So most mornings, depending on the day of the week, I'm up anywhere between 4 to 5:30. I got one day a week I can sleep until about 7 and take my son to school. But then the rest of the days it's up early. Typically we'll have a group that we work with in the indoor facility right away in the morning. Coming back into the facility off of that, a little bit of time for some organization for the day, some programming, get with staff on whatever's going on for the upcoming day. Depending on the day, could have a couple staff meetings during the day, typically around 9 or 10 o'clock as the staff will train, get that wrapped up, a little bit of lunch around 12 o'clock, and our first group starts at 1:15. Right now with so many newcomers on the team, a lot of new staff this year, we split our groups up in offense and defense. That way the coaches can kind of come down and see their entire side of ball, train, see those guys work. So once those groups start, we'll typically start in the indoor facility with, a speed, if it's a day we're working, acceleration, speed work, we'll start out there, transition to the weight room, train, then we'll run that back in the next group. Once that wraps up, a little bit after 5 o'clock, most days it's out of here, then straight to the baseball field for my son for Little League baseball or travel baseball. And then, so usually home by 7:30, 8:30 right in there. Get the day wrapped up at home. I try to typically be in bed, 10:30ish right now.
Don't tell me what I want to hear. Tell me the truth.
Oh, I know. No, unfortunately, that's the truth. I usually try to keep my sleep a little bit better than that. But this time of year with the early mornings and then with the baseball schedule, my sleep kind of takes a hit this time of year. Typically, I try to do a better job than that. But sometimes life is what life is, and it's not always optimal.
And so when do you get your strength training in?
Typically, we train the staff around 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. So we'll get that. We do that kind of prior to lunch. So it kind of gives us about a 2-hour window there to get all that done. Get some conditioning in, get some lunges in, and then lunch, and then into the rest of the day.
So what I'm hearing is during your whole day, you basically have like maybe 2 hours to yourself.
On a good day.
On a good day. It's par for the course, right? As a professional and a parent and
Yeah.
So how did you get involved with strength training just from the start? Because your whole background, as I was looking over your bio and all the different teams that you've been with, how did that start for you?
Well, it's kind of been my whole life. And my mom always says it's her fault. So you go back to like the early to mid '80s. My mom was a fitness instructor and old school aerobics instructor with the leotards and the leg warmers and all those things. So I grew up in gyms because that was my daycare. I would hang out with the guys that worked at the gym while she taught classes and stuff. So I was always around it. And then as I got older and was an athlete, I grew super fast as a kid. Like I was like 6'4" in like seventh grade. So I was very tall, but I was also super skinny, super undeveloped, had to work with athleticism and stuff. So the weight room, kind of about the time high school started, became a huge part of my life because like I knew I loved athletics, loved sports. But I was like, if I don't develop physically, I got no chance to do any of this.
Yeah.
So that took me through high school, into college at the University of South Dakota, played tight end there. So I was training became an even bigger part as you step onto a college campus. And I knew going through that, like the NFL definitely was not going to be my future. But I knew like I love football, want to stay involved with the game, and knew that like I had no desire at all to be a football coach. It just never that part never sunk to me at all. And just kind of the way college careers go, I probably spent more time being injured and preparing to play the game than I ever spent playing the game. And I kind of realized later in my career, like I'm actually more passionate about this part of the game than I am about any other part of the game.
Yeah, the preparation part.
Yep, kind of the fight before the fight, so to speak. And
Yeah.
so as I was starting to wrap up there, I was working, in a local gym there in Vermilion. Knew though that wasn't what I wanted to do. Went that summer to a private facility in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Was attached to the hospital system, and they train high school athletes and a lot of like small school college athletes. I think this is probably 1999, right around there, kind of before summer programs became what they've become. And so a lot of those guys that played like me played at D2 schools, 1AA schools, NAIA schools. They didn't have a summer program, so for the guys where training was important, they'd come back home for the summer and find a place to train to get ready for camp. And so this place kind of served that need. And I got really really lucky because the guy that ran that program was a guy named Steve Bliss. He's actually still there now. But he had been part of Boyd Epley's original crew at Nebraska. He was the first ever strength coach, I believe, at Miami, the first ever strength coach, I believe, at Ohio State. And where I kind of met him was after he transitioned out of college into that private sector. So, like, I mean, he was a absolute like wealth of knowledge of pulling back the curtain into that world, because coming from at that time USD was a D2 school, so like our strength coach was our D line coach, so it was we had a good strength program, but not standalone and as organized, and it was what they've become. And so for him to be able to kind of pull the curtain back as to like that's a real career, and you can chase that as as your passion and what you want to do. So I learned a ton from him. Went back to school, at the end of that summer. Knew I needed to do an internship in the spring, and a lot of my like career path is kind of like Forrest Gump in a lot of ways, of just not knowing any better. And so I needed to do an internship in the spring. I sent out 2 resumes. I sent one to the Kansas City Chiefs, and I sent one to the Minnesota Vikings. Interviewed for both those positions, was offered both those positions. Growing up in South Dakota, grew up a lifetime Vikings fan. I obviously took that
Awesome.
position. So that year for spring break, I went up there and worked OTAs and rookie minicamp. Went back to school, finished the last, part of the semester, moved up there in May, and then worked the off season as an intern, and then was hired on that season as a like a seasonal assistant. Very very low paid position. I probably made more money bagging groceries at the grocery store than I did doing that. But that was kind of my entry into the profession.
That's pretty awesome. And when did you first realize, that this whole notion, this concept about sleep and the role that sleep plays in training, in preparation, injury prevention, recovery, power, speed, performance, mental health, emotional, all the myriad of benefits that sleep provides? When did you first realize? I kind of feel like with our conversations through the years and our relationship, FSU has been pretty much at the cutting edge of investing in not only what the players are doing during training on the field, but off the field as well. It's been my impression that FSU's been wanting to or willing to invest in the players, invest in what they need to set them up for success, knowing that what they need might be something that you don't even see or something that you're doing when you're not training. So when did your focus on rest and recovery kind of tie in to your role and how you can influence the athletes and what you coach them as far as sleep and recovery?
Yeah. And I think the sleep thing, I think, prior to us meeting, it's always something like, in your mind, like, how important it is, right? But, that's prior to the research and the tools to enhance the sleep and all those types of things. Um, and, kind of started really when I bought that first Chili Sleep unit, and whether that was five years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
like, no pun intended, but like what an overnight game changer that
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
And how it affected, my sleep, my recovery, all those things. And so it kind of started building from there. I started, everybody know, like, hey, you got to get one of these. You have to get one of these, like how much it's helped and whatnot. And then coming here, we did the first original demo with the guys during camp that year.
Mm-hmm.
Soccer brought it on, did the study. And so for me, we all know, like, I mean, we train college athletes, and we were all in college once too. And that sleep is probably, if it's even on your priority list, it's probably the bottom of your priority
Right.
list, right? And for us, it's always trying to find an edge, it's trying to find a way to help our guys be better, not just physically but cognitively as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I try to look for the opportunities where it's passive improvement. I
Right.
mean, at some point every night, these guys are going to go to bed.
Yeah.
Now, it may not be as many hours as I'd like them to be able to get and stuff, and as many hours as what they need. But if I can maximize that time they do spend in bed, and in a passive way, simply by setting your schedule on your machine or turning it on at night, like, now that whatever sleep those guys are getting is going to be maximized, it's going to be closer to optimal. And just through the feedback from our guys, like how much that's affected them. And, full well, that was a long process to get us to that point, but,
Yeah.
now, like, I even have our strength staff, our sports med staff, our football staff, all with units as well, simply because the more people that we can get here to experience that,
Right.
the more they can sell it to our players, to the importance of it.
Right.
Because I mean, they're 18 to 22 years old, so like sometimes it takes a village to help get the information across and to get the message across, to show the priority, importance, and impact that it can have. So for us, the more of our staff members and coaches and stuff we can have that can kind of sing that same song, it's really helped with our guys.
I think as far as coaches experiencing it and understanding it and being able to speak to it, just from the perspective of a parent, I can scream till I'm blue in the face and tell my children to get to bed. But if they hear it from a coach, it's going to stick. They're going to probably heed a coach's advice sooner than, eventually it's in the back of their minds. Their parents said so. But at least with my own son, I found that, advice or cutting edge, tips or tricks or things that might give them a little bit of an advantage, as far as performance, healing, recovery, all of the above, sleeping better, getting more out of less with their sleep time. I think that hearing it from a coach is definitely more useful. So once the coaches feel it, then they can kind of speak to it better.
Yeah, and especially when it comes from someone who's experienced it themselves, and not just like, oh, the other coach said this was good, so I'm gonna tell you it's good. It's like, no, like, this helped me, and I don't even do
Right.
the things that you do. And even kind of on a side deal, like, my son's 11, and I took one of the old cube units we had and put it in his bed, and like, it is amazing. Like,
Yeah.
he's a kid that typically on the weekend, I mean, he's up at 6:30 in the morning. He's in literally the very first night I put that in his bed, it was like 9:30. I'm like, I gotta go check on him. Like, is he okay? And like, he's like, I slept like so good. I'm like, I mean, if it hits an 11-year-old like that, like,
Yeah.
that's kind of a no-brainer for the rest of us,
Right, right. So do you actually discuss sleep with the players and habits and like what I'm thinking about players in a dorm or in a dorm setting? What tools can we give players, or how do you coach the players as far as sleep hygiene? What is a good sleep environment in a dorm room when we know that they're, living with roommates and noise and having to study and having parties next door? And what advice do you give your players?
We don't do a ton of like, hey, we're gonna sit down and have formal education and talk about sleep. A lot of it is, from the staff to the guys, kind of, on the fly, informally, the conversations and whatnot. And I think a big thing with our guys is like trying to get them, it doesn't have to be elaborate, but establish some sort of nighttime routine, from the time you go at night, from the time you shower, know what time you're going to be, about what time you need to be done with homework, know what time you need to start like getting off your phone or getting off the game, and like kind of like start to be able to like scale your day down at the end of the day, to start slowing down a little bit, to unplug a little bit late in the day, to let allow your brain time to calm, and set that routine so your body knows like, oh, I'm doing these things, okay, it's time to start transition to going to sleep.
Right.
And so a lot of it is just trying to work with guys like, hey, what's your nighttime look like? What do you do up until the time you go to bed? Okay,
Yeah.
well, if here's where you're at now, you're never gonna take a guy from awful sleep habits to elite sleep hygiene overnight. But it's okay. Hey, try this and this, and they'll try a couple things like, oh, that helps. Okay, well, hey, try this now too. Brian Peters come down and we've done a lot of the breath work stuff and teach them how they can use some of that stuff at night to help them slow down and sleep. Because I know, like at my age, when I was in college, like as soon as I lay down in bed at night, your brain's 1,000 miles an hour, and you're thinking about all the senseless things. And you're like, I just want to go to sleep, and that sleep anxiety builds and whatnot. And just teaching guys some tools to combat that, and then just trying to teach them how to make their room as optimal as possible, to make sure it's dark, to make sure it's cool, those type of things. Just the easy low hanging fruit. And like, for like our guys, like they're young and they're all freaks, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't have to be 100% in any of this.
Right.
But if you can tap into 25 or 50% of it, you are light years ahead of most of your peers.
Absolutely.
Whether that be from the sleep stuff or the mindset or the recovery or whatever it may be. But then once those guys learn, like, hey, like hydration and sleep are the two non-negotiables. There's nothing more attached to your performance. There's nothing more attached to your recovery. There's nothing more attached to your ability to stay healthy and stay on the field doing what you love than these two things. So if we can just do a good job at those two things, then after that, we're playing with house money, with how much more we can push that.
And to dive a little bit deeper, I'm assuming that the athletes have athlete management systems, tracking devices of some sort. That's definitely when they're in training or on the field or whatever, but do they also have any sort of tracking or assessment as far as sleep and recovery, or is that it? Do they know that they have open lines of communication to be able to come and say, hey, coach, I can't sleep, I'm not sleeping? What process would you use, or how do you identify troubled sleepers?
Yeah, a lot of the troubled sleep is simply just relationship based and conversation. As far as like the tracking system, athlete management, a lot of our Olympic sports use that very heavily, but you're managing small rosters, 20, 25 kids. When we're talking about 105 kids, it's a little bit different. We've done a little bit of it in the past with very, very mixed results. I think most places that do try to go all in on that realize like you chase a lot of ghosts on that. Right. So a lot of it that really helps us, to be honest. We have a few guys who are super dialed into their Whoop or their Aura or whatever they use. And it's amazing, like just the power of the word of mouth. Like there's some of my kids who I could not pay them enough money to make them wear a Whoop band every day. But, one of my old linemen is like lives by his. And he tells those other guys in the room about it. So like they don't need to experience it firsthand and see their own numbers. They just know like, oh, this works for Jake and he's doing this. Okay, well, what are you doing to get that? They don't like, it's kind of like, just show me the baby kind of deal.
Right.
Like I don't need to do all that. Just tell me what to do and I'll do that. And so our guys are pretty compliant with that, but it's not necessarily a very formalized system, so to speak.
So it sounds like you also kind of rely on your influencers within the teams as well. I know you also have an O lineman that you said loves his Chilipad and tells his roommates and his teammates about it. That's awesome.
Yeah, and where I know that's doing a good job, where that's working is so like just college football has become very transient. Transfer portal, all those all those things. But so we started this winter program with 30 newcomers. Okay. And so those are guys that don't know us yet, don't really know a lot about the program yet. I mean, they're literally brand new. I'll have guys coming to me within their first 4, 5, 6 days here. Yo, coach, the sleep things the other guys got. Like when do I get mine? And I'm like, that's awesome. That means guys are talking about this and it matters to them, because here's a teammate who you just met, and in your first couple interactions with them, you've told them about that.
That's awesome.
And it hit them enough for them to come find me and talk to me like, hey, when can I get mine? And for me, I'm like, okay, what we're doing is working.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because that's not something we have to do. That's something is driving itself within the locker room.
Well, that was definitely the purpose. So good on FSU for investing in better sleep hygiene for the student athletes. All right. So before I let you go, what is one thing that you do before bed that you shouldn't do?
Probably what I do, and this isn't necessarily right before I go to bed, but like Colt's young enough where he still wants, mom or dad do bedtime with him. Uh-huh. And so So if I go up and I'm laying in his bed, I have to be on my phone because if I'm not, as soon as he starts to shut it down, I will fall asleep. And I've done it before. It's been 3:30 in the morning. I'm like, waking up, like, where am I at? Like, I'm like, oh my God, am I late to like? So as I'm laying in his bed, I'm literally attached to my phone the entire time. And typically, as soon as I know he's asleep, I'm downstairs and I'm getting in bed. So like, I'm
Right.
still running my phone up until 5, 10 minutes before I'm asleep. So if there's a way around that, that'd be great. But to be honest, I haven't found a better solution yet. So that's probably my worst sleep habit.
So it's your worst sleep habit, but not really. It's a parenting
Other
habit
lack
that
of
allows
sleep.
you, right, that
That affects my
allows
sleep,
you,
yes.
that allows you to be a good parent to your son. And again, those are memories that you'll take with you forever, like the baseball to the eye story.
Yes.
Woo.
Yes.
Well, Josh, we have thoroughly enjoyed having you on the podcast, and we look forward to our continued partnership with FSU. And we've appreciated our friendship with you and our relationship with you from the very beginning, from when you came to us, and it was just a very organic relationship, authentic relationship for us both. So we wish you and the team the best of success, and we look forward to continuing the conversation.
No, thank you very much for having me on. And like obviously, just my appreciation for you guys and how much what you do has affected me and helped me be better. And then just how we've been able to spill that over into our team here to help our team be better as well. So just a huge thank you from our end to you guys as well.
Information, inspiration, and opinions are my own and are not intended to be medical advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider before making any changes to your diet, exercise routine, medical treatment, or if you think you may have a sleep disorder. Conversations I have with subject matter experts are intended to continue our efforts to optimize your sleep for better health, more energy, and improved physical and cognitive performance.